Welcome everybody to the purring pot. I hope you have a big warm cup of something you enjoy. We are going to be talking today about something I'm sure you've heard of in the media. It's getting a lot of traction right now, and it's not new. It's been around for a long time. We're going to be talking about crystals. And I'm going to start out by just saying I love pretty rocks.
Pretty rocks. They're pretty. They're gorgeous. Who doesn't like pretty rocks?
I love them. I have actually blown an entire paycheck on them before. I may have a 75-pound oh god, fluorite wine holder upstairs.
Is that what that is? Is fluorite? Yeah. Oh, it's so pretty. Yeah. Oh, it's so pretty.
I am the first person. I like old rocks. I like new rocks. I like rocks. Yeah, I like rocks. So nothing I say today is in any way bashing rocks, but I think it is a topic that is taking advantage of people who may not have any kind of background in rocks, or because it typically gets sold as something that it's not. And I just sorry.
Well, yeah, so like from my perspective on the social media front, because you're saying people are taking advantage of it, I feel like people presenting the information also don't have the proper background.
No, and they may not. That is also something that we're going to get into, because a lot of this information spreads by word of mouth. A lot of this information is oral. What is it? Oral tradition.
Yep.
It's not something that's written down in an encyclopedia somewhere, especially not the spiritual stuff. The spiritual traditions of certain stones can be thousands of years old. A good example is the Native American spiritual tradition with their attachment to certain rocks. And I'm using rocks because there are some that are minerals and not crystals, and there is a distinct difference, geologically speaking, between the two. So
hey, we're also getting a science lesson today. Which is fantastic. Yes, it's so important when anything involving you and another object, you want to have that scientific understanding.
You do. You do want to know that bismuth is a crystal but not a mineral. That you want to know that quartz is both a mineral and a crystal, and it has to do with one being naturally made, as well as a list of other qualifications to be a mineral, that have to do with the alignment of the atoms and all of this, such to the point where, fun fact, ice is technically a mineral.
Okay. Can you give a quick and dirty difference between mineral and crystal?
Your biggest difference is that mineral is always going to be natural made.
Okay.
The atoms are always going to be tightly aligned in a uniform matter. So granite would not technically be considered a mineral. And it's always going to be in a solid state.
Mm-hmm.
So
minerals are always in a solid state, is what you're saying.
Minerals are always in a solid state. And that's not the full list, but that's the quick and dirty thing to keep in mind. So things like I said, liquid mercury is not a mineral.
Okay.
Gold is not a mineral because its atoms don't align in an orderly fashion. Those are considered precious metals, and that's a whole different thing. If we get into those as well, this is going to be a really long podcast.
For me, and I'm sure others that are listening want to may not know the difference between all the different pretty rocks from that atom scientific background. So you said granite would not be considered a mineral, so I'm assuming it's considered a crystal.
It's not. It's actually let me Google this real quick. I could be misspeaking, so let me correct myself real fast. Where's my mouse?
We're new, by the way. While she looks at, we're old and new at the same time. While she's looking this up, we are also on YouTube. If you're listening and you want to watch our, normalness, then you can head over to YouTube as well.
It is not a mineral. It is considered just a hard igneous rock.
Okay. Rock. It's rock.
Yeah.
So there's rocks and then there's subcategories of rocks.
Yes.
In a way.
And not all rocks are minerals and crystals, but all minerals and crystals are rocks.
Yes.
Well, no. All crystals are rocks, because some minerals are not rocks. It's like ice.
I hear you. I hear you.
That's what is one diagram that I should have made for this.
Well, I'm just thinking we should have the periodic table. I feel like
we should.
Back to pretty rock.
And really, like, what I wanted to do was caution, just in general, some of the things to look out for and to think about before you spend an entire paycheck on pretty rocks, which I have done, and I don't regret.
But you knew going in what you wanted, why you wanted it. You weren't, the wool wasn't pulled over your eyes by some influencer on TikTok that says, hey, take this crystal and put it up your hoo-ha. Like, that's
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. That's not good for multiple reasons. For one, most crystals and minerals are porous, and so it's impossible to clean and sterilize them. So yeah, don't put them inside your body in anywhere. Don't do that.
Them. You can touch them.
Some of them you should even wear gloves when handling, if you're going to handle them a lot.
Is that for your sake or the crystal's sake?
For your sake.
For your sake.
Especially if your hands tend to be sweaty, because salt can break them down into their other elements, and some of those other elements can be quite dangerous.
So fascinating.
Yep. Don't put them in your water.
All those water bottles you see out there with the amethyst in them, please don't.
Same reason. They can be porous in nature. And if you're thinking, well, quartz isn't porous, yes, no, it's not, but it can develop cracks. And in those cracks, all kinds of crazy things can live, and it can't be sterilized properly.
Right.
And God knows what it's introducing to your water. Please don't put dirt in your water. We've worked for hundreds of thousands of years to get dirt out of our water. Please bring it back in the water.
Yes, I love it.
Charcoal is different. Charcoal is ash. Don't put dirt back in the water.
Yes, just drink your water as water. I mean,
yeah,
lime or lemon, that'd be great.
Vegetables, all of that's acceptable. Please don't put rocks in your water.
Yeah, just don't.
There are things that you want to be mindful of. The biggest one right now, the thing that's like sweeping social media that I'm seeing, and that's certainly sweeping like the fast fashion stores like Temu, is the stone face rollers and the stone that
we were just talking about these.
Yeah, and
they're so pretty.
They are. They're pretty, and if you want to rub a pretty rock on your face because it makes you feel good and it makes you feel pretty, please by all means do that. Like, I am not here to stop you. Don't spend an exorbitant amount of money on it.
Know what you're getting.
Know what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Know where it's sourced from. Realize what the markup is on some of it, because it is incredibly popular right now, and they are going to try and mark up as high as they can. Where you can just go to your local rock store, because we all have one.
They're everywhere.
When you're in a little tiny podunk town, there's a place where you can go and buy a rock. Buy you a little like rose quartz heart and use that instead for like $12, because some of the prices on some of this is insane.
Well, and on that, I've seen some face rollers that are the opposite. They're like $5, and I'm like,
which is great.
Is it? Okay, my thought was that's too cheap, and that's not even a real crystal at that point.
It probably is, actually, and we'll get into the unethicalness of mining here in a minute, and how cheap the labor is, and how plentiful the rose quartz is in the places where it's being mined. And $5 is probably maybe 100% markup of what it cost them to make a roller.
Okay, I feel a little bit better on
When
that.
you see $120 rose quartz based roller, it's thousands of percentages markup from what it cost them to make
and
it.
it's one of you'll hear us say everybody's got to make money. We understand you've got to make money. That is not a proper ethical way to make money.
If you want to splurge on a pretty piece of smooth rose quartz for your face or your pocket, don't spend that much money, and especially don't spend that kind of money on a company that is going to tell you that it's anti-aging or it will reverse aging, because that's not how any of that works.
No, because most likely you need to, if you're looking for specifically for anti-aging or anti-wrinkle and you're going to rub it all over here, you're also going to be using a cream or an ointment that is also meant for that.
Yeah.
Not that that's 100% magic either, but
I'm going to duck for a second.
Okay. I marked this. We can cut this out. So, baby!
Little baby.
See, real life podcast, y'all. Real life podcast. Rose is now holding her baby, for those of you that are not watching on YouTube. It's adorable. You should go watch on YouTube. She's adorable. She wants to be a part of the podcast.
Angry.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing when it comes to anti-aging is that aging in our cells is caused by oxidation. And
like what?
Those creams that you were talking about, that is as oxygen creeps into each cell, it actually sets it on fire, a very, very slow fire, and the cell starts to fall apart. And every time the cell splits, that damage from the oxidation splits with it. So its children are oxidized as well.
Okay.
So whatever cream or potion is promising that it's going to reverse the signs of aging, it's probably not. It's probably not.
I don't think
anti-aging prevention. Hey. Sorry.
We have animals.
Yeah.
So reversing it just sounds like it's not. It's a tagline. It's a marketing thing.
Yep. It's not something that's actually going to happen on a cellular level. Preventing it is a thing you can do. Absolutely. You're not going to do it with a rock. It's one of the reasons why antioxidants are so important. Why vitamin C is so important in your face creams. It can actually, and why sunblock is so important, because sunblock is also going to contain a certain amount of antioxidant barrier to your skin.
Side note, if anybody hasn't heard, sunblock in the winter is just as important as sunblock in the summer.
Sunblock in the rain. Just because
the snow.
Just because it's cloudy outside doesn't mean that you can't get sunburned. As a daughter of a surfer, I'm here to promise you, you can get sunburned in the clouds.
Yes, especially with water, because that's an automatic reflectant.
Well, and it also creates a magnifying effect if you're under the water. Let's say you're swimming around in a pool.
Oh, I didn't know that. It makes sense once you say it, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, there are ways that you can prevent aging. You can prevent those wrinkles from happening, and there are creams you can use to smooth those wrinkles out, but you're not actually going to reverse aging. It's not a thing that's going to happen. And if you're going to do any kind of antioxidant barrier for your skin, it's not going to be a rock. It's just not. That's not what we're using them for.
Right.
When we rub them on our faces. And that's no. I don't know where else to go with that. Just no.
All right, so you're talking about a lot of the what it doesn't do. So what
Talk
does
about
it?
what it
Yeah, what's the benefit other than this is a beautiful rock and I like to have it on my
Well,
wall?
the benefit is a facial massage to start.
Okay.
Like really basic facial massage that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. I mean, you could give yourself with your fingers, but we all know that, a massage wand works better than your fingers, and that's where I'm going to leave that statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, you want that facial feeling without spending $80 at a spa. This is a great solution.
Yeah. And I have heard that putting it in the refrigerator makes it feel even better.
Yes.
So if you're wanting that refreshing feeling, then put it in the refrigerator.
Open your pores up, you can dip some warm massage oil.
Oh,
and it
that
just
sounds
as
fun.
long as you're using quartz base, don't use any kind of warm oil on anything other than quartz base, because again, you need to know the structure of what you're using. Things can break crystals down very easily.
Is jade considered a quartz? Because I see a lot of jade face rollers.
Jade is on its own.
It's in its own thing.
Its own little family, and they are also safe for oils, typically, as long as they're real. And you'll know that you have a real jade if you you know how you can test for real crystal, and you tap it, and it makes that real pretty chiming sound.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like a crystal glass almost.
Yeah, you should hear a similar pretty little chime when you tap jade against jade. It should have that really pretty, like ding, almost like an extending ring to it.
Yeah, like the old-timey silver dimes.
Yep. And it should be much heavier than it looks like it should be.
Okay.
It's one of those things you should pick up that jade bracelet and be like, damn, this is heavy. How am I going to wear this all day?
Then you realize the grounding effects that it has, and you just feel so much better.
Because it's heavy.
It's heavy.
Because those atoms are so heavily, tightly packed in. It is so dense of a material. It should be heavy when you pick it up. If you pick up your jade roller and it feels light in your hand, you're probably dealing with colored glass, which is not a problem.
It's still okay to use.
It's still okay. It does the job.
Right.
I hope you didn't pay a lot for it, because that's where it hurts. That's the kicker.
It's unfortunate, and it's going to be in any retail field industry. Yes.
You want to face the camera?
Hello. Hi, baby. Yeah, she wants to be involved. Yeah, there's a smile. Yeah, so cute.
You're not even talking yet.
So do you want to keep talking about what it does and doesn't do, or you want to go back to the beginning of your notes that you compiled?
Well, talking about what it does do is actually going to bring me around to my notes.
Okay, cool. Because that was my next question. Because I mean, I've heard so this is what I've heard. Let me tell you, since I mostly know from the mainstream media, that there's energies and vibrations, and using certain stones for certain kinds of energy is a thing. And by using, I mean touching, placing in certain areas in your house or your whatever, not ingesting, using. Yeah. So when I say using, I mean utilizing. So that's what I've heard. There's the energies and vibrations, and it's a real thing. So, and you go.
It does go back thousands of years. The use of crystals and stones in religious and spiritual senses has been going on since we first picked up the first pretty rock and went, ooh, this has to do something.
Fair.
You're walking alongside a riverbed and you pick up a piece of ice that doesn't melt, which, I mean, if you've seen certain pieces of field spar, that's what it looks like. It looks like ice that just doesn't melt. And your little lizard brain is going to go, this has got to be something important. This has to be. And to a certain extent it is. because it's important to you. I love rocks. I'm one of those horrible people who likes to pick up a rock from everywhere she's ever been. And I know that that's naughty and that you shouldn't do it in certain national parks, but it's just a small rock. I also don't encourage it, because if everyone did it, we would all be in trouble.
Right.
And I'm not supposed to do it, and I'm being a bad person by doing it. But, people collect soil samples from everywhere they've been.
Yeah.
People collect sand samples from every beach they visit. This is just a human nature kind of thing to us, to touch these kind of rocks and feel something from them. And it's not a new phenomenon by any measure. And there is a certain amount of, I want to say, legitimacy behind using stones in your spiritual practice, because we've been doing it for thousands of years.
Right.
Now, there are still active spiritual practices out there that use rocks, like the Vedic practice and the Native Americans, and you need to be careful what you're claiming, because, if you're claiming to be using Native American rituals, you need to actually be using Native American rituals. I'm not a fan of, this is how the Native Americans do it, and you didn't learn it from a Native American, and that's not.
We learned it from TikTok.
Yeah, don't.
It's not respectful.
Same with the Vedic.
It's a lot there.
Because Ayurveda is so popular right now, and the chakras are so popular, and so many people are taking it and running with it like a streamer, and you're learning it from not to be offensive, but a little white girl in a rock shop, and who knows where she heard it from.
Is it offensive if we're talking about our own self?
I don't know. I know. I walk into these shops well and prepared of who shops at these places. Yep. Okay.
But they're still the best places to go to get.
They are
what you're looking for.
It is a 1,000-year-old tradition. It is tens of thousands year old tradition for us to be using these stones. There's something to them, and it leads me to a conversation about placebos and faith, and how important a placebo can be in the absence of working medicine. Going back to my tooth pain, how important a placebo can be to keep you sane while dealing with chronic pain while you're waiting for a dentist or a surgery or an appointment. Placebos are so important. They get a lot of trash because, it's just a placebo.
Who cares?
It's never just a placebo.
Yeah.
It's never just a placebo, especially not like this recently with the whole allergy medicine, not allergy, cold medicine, where
you were
been
telling
on the shelf for almost 15, 20 years, and now they're coming out that it doesn't work any better than a placebo, but it was working fine until you told me that.
I know what we talked about it, and our sous chef words at our restaurant just last week was telling me that stuff's the shit. I just took it. It's amazing. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
I take it too. I've got another one. By the way, we're talking about the Tylenol sinus headache, right?
Phenylphedrine, I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a decongestant that you can
get.
The
ingredient.
Yeah, the ingredient, and it doesn't perform any better than a placebo, but I'm over here like it was performing great until you told me.
Right. So it's not the Tylenol specific, it's that ingredient in any medicine. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love
pulling it from shelves, but I'm over here like, but it was working.
Well, I mean, are they saying that it's harmful?
I don't know. I haven't really looked fully into it. I should. It was just it's one of those great examples of how a placebo is never just a placebo.
Well, even in birth control, the pills, you have a week's worth of placebos. And the way that the health department lady, when I first went and saw her and got my first birth control many moons ago, she was like, they don't do anything, but they keep you regular in taking it every day. It helps that mindset of, I'm taking it, it's helping me with birth control. Even though the week that you're on the placebos is not the week you're fertile, it's, all that stuff. But it's there for a reason.
Yeah. And that's very important. Like I said, especially if you're dealing with chronic pain or chronic mental health issues, if holding a piece of smoky quartz to your forehead keeps you from having a PTSD breakdown, then by all means do it.
Yeah.
Like I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. If putting selenite in your pocket to go to work keeps you calm and keeps panic attacks down, that's great. That's fantastic. That's functional. Like, I am not here. I am the biggest proponent of faith healing, strangely enough, as well as placebo. It function when our medical industry can't fill that gap. When that's a gap that exists, and it's this gaping hole in our health industry and in our wellness, then it needs to be filled with something, and this is working.
Yeah.
So let's fill it with that.
Right. Don't fix what's not broken.
Right.
By all means, if you're doing something and it's broken, meaning it's causing harm, then that's not what we're talking about. Again, don't put it in your water.
Don't, because it might fix your mental health, but it's going to cause some physical health problems.
Yeah. I just want to be clear. Just because it helps you doesn't mean you should on everything.
If it makes another problem worse,
yes, then reevaluate. Yeah, let's find a different placebo. Yeah, no, I get that. So is there any scientifical, biological evidence to prove this whole vibrations and energy thing that I hear talking about?
Not physically.
Okay.
And a lot of the stuff that you hear about, that you're talking about, and I'm going to oversimplify this to a sense of brutality. Some historian is going to listen to this and be like, well, that's not actually. I know. I am going to break this down into parsable, consumable mouthfuls.
So that your 5-month-old can understand.
Yeah. In the late 1800s, a guy found a certain kind of crystal in a rock that is real and very cool. And they're called zircon crystals. And he ended up dating what was a real supercontinent through these zircon crystals. And he called it Lemuria. And at that time, in the late Victorian period, a lot of people were going through these religious... You cannot have whole peanuts. Okay, sorry.
It's like, but Mom...
we're going through these religious revolutions, and things like psychics and mediums were really popular. People were questioning and exploring with spirituality in a really beautiful way. And this gentleman, well, not just a gentleman, there were several people who took this idea of this supercontinent of Lemuria and ran with it as being Atlantis.
Okay.
And this connection of this crystal became Atlantis was a world of crystals, and they could be used as weapons, and they had knowledge we didn't have, and they, basically were made computers out of crystals and bombs out of crystals. And that's why Atlantis sunk, was because, they misused crystals.
So all of that about Atlantis that you just talked about was theorized by this dude, or was that already about Atlantis?
By several at the same time, but Edward Casey ended up being the most famous one.
Okay. So like prior to that, was Atlantis even a myth?
Yes.
Or
yeah.
What did they say before that about Atlantis?
Well, and that's the really tricky part is that, well, I forget which Greek philosopher did it. There was a Greek historian. Really? There was a Greek historian philosopher who talked about Atlantis and wrote about Atlantis as like my grandfather's grandfather told me about this happening.
Gotcha.
And he did mention beautiful crystals or gemstones in his telling, and so that's what caused this later group of people to link these two so strongly.
Gotcha. Okay.
But Edward Casey became the most famous for believing that he could channel Atlantean spirits and Atlantean dead people. Not up, not down, not up, not down. And he gained quite the following.
Sure.
He like, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, because he's talking about pretty rocks. I mean,
he's talking about pretty rocks, and it's pretty cool. And I mean, this pretty rock that I dug up in my backyard could be proof of Atlantis. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm here for that.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, if I'm going to join a cult, I'm going to join his. That's what it's going to. I can channel Atlantean spirits. That's where I'm at. It just seems like fun.
It does sound pretty rocks.
And it's funny because it took almost 100 years from his birth for people to really latch on to this idea. And in the 60s and 70s, he kind of had a reflux of people who believed and wanted to believe that crystals had these supernatural Atlantis connections. Mm-hmm. And we see a real resurgence of it in the 1980s when we were born. Mm-hmm. And it's starting to kind of come in these waves of people with this idea of crystals releasing vibrations, energy, and all of this. And it's not untrue. It's just oversold.
Okay. So it's not quite as epic as they make it seem. Is that a good word?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if there are plenty of spiritual traditions where rocks are used and vibration is used, and where was I going? Sorry, I looked at the baby.
Yeah, rewind it. Vibrations, 1980s vibrations are used.
Religious traditions where vibrations are used, where crystals are used, where those things have really deep spiritual meaning. It gets oversold when people start to talk about it as if it's a science.
Okay.
We need to be really careful that we keep the spiritual and the scientific separate. Yeah. In this instance.
Right.
Because it's not doing anything. I don't know how, hold on, my words. I'm losing my words. It's not a physiological change or effect that you're going to feel if you're using these stones in those kinds of ways.
So it's not, so what I'm hearing is, if you have heard or think that if you take smoky quartz, I don't know exactly, and put it up against your chest, that its vibrations will help regulate your vibrations on a scientific level. I feel like that's how it's sold.
Yeah, it's sold as a very physiological thing, and that's a very spiritual thing, and it's almost kind of offensive because it is appropriating some of the spiritual traditions that do use vibrations as a real thing, where you have the Buddhist traditions of the singing bowls, which are a real vibration, which do have a physiological effect on you. Or you have the Rasta traditions, which use vibrations not in a physiological sense, but in a spiritual sense. It's like you're taking those two and you're meshing them together, and you're saying that this is a 1,000-year-old tradition instead of just saying oh, well, or this is a real scientific fact, instead of just saying, well, this is how I use it. This is how I view it.
Right.
You can't sell it like that without taking serious advantage and of other traditions and pushing them together and forcing them into something new, like Play-Doh.
Right. So what about all those books that you see that list every kind of crystal or mineral, rock, and what they are, quote, good to use for, like anxiety, sadness, XYZ? What are your
I
thoughts
see
on
those
that?
as a oral spiritual tradition. That's how I view them, and that's how I use them. Is okay. Well, I don't know the slightest thing about using crystals for my anxiety, but they're out of my meds at the pharmacy, and I need something to keep me calm today because I have a podcast that I need to film.
Right.
So I'm gonna crack open a book, and I'm gonna put my trust fully in the fact that what I need is to meditate for 5 minutes with some tiger's eye.
Right.
And I'm just going to trust that is what is going to work. And it probably will at least get me through the meeting or the podcast.
So that sounds like there's not a fear of, quote, using the wrong crystal. Like, oh, I'm supposed to use tiger's eye to help meditate me, but I grabbed tourmaline instead. It's not going to have a reactive effect. Like, oh, I used the wrong one. Unless you put that intention into it. Yes. Yeah.
When you put your faith into that of, oh my God, that's why my day's been terrible, is I grabbed the hematite instead of the black onyx.
Right.
That's on you.
That's on you.
Yeah. That's your faith changing the purpose of that placebo.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
It's not the stone that's doing it. It's all, it literally is all in your head. This is the one case where it is actually in your head. And your head, your brain is an amazing organ, and it does amazing things. So I don't ever want to like belittle that idea.
Right. I hear what you're saying.
Your brain can get you through amazing chunks of time.
Yeah.
In pain, in stress. It can normalize things that really shouldn't be normalized, just so that you can survive it.
Yeah.
And our brains as human beings are the most adaptable part of us.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, hi.
Cute.
You're distracting. You know that, right?
But I feel like, so I also want to add, and correct me if I'm wrong, the use of crystals, how you want to put your intention into it, doesn't just have to be to fix a negative. I mean, like, I'm feeling great today. I'm loving myself, and holding a piece of rose quartz in my pocket just helps me keep that feeling.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't always have to be like, I have a migraine, I can only use crystals to fix something. Right. With your intention. Take all the things we've said and, back it behind with what I'm saying. Yeah.
My migraine medicine is not working. I've got to go to work. I don't have migraine medicine in the cabinet. I've got to go to work. I want to double up on my migraine medicine because I have to go to work.
Right.
That you don't always have to use it that way. I love worry stones. I keep them in my pocket even when I'm not worried. It's probably the biggest detriment to my washing machine is that I like to keep a penny in all of my pockets because I like to worry it.
Yeah.
And there's always a coin in every coat and sweater pocket that I own because even when I'm not worried, I like to just reach my hand in my pocket. It's a stimming effect, and I'm aware it's a stimming effect. But it's that you can do that.
But I've never once heard you say, oh my gosh, my penny is not in my pocket, and that's why my day is going to crap.
No. And I wouldn't dare put it on the penny like that.
Right.
That's not.
Yeah. I just wanted to speak that because I feel like so many people might do that. And
it's very easy to do that.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily helpful.
I've got a lucky piece of carnelian in my car that
you do?
Yes, I do. And when I took it out to clean my car and forgot to put it back in, I had 2 car accidents in the span of 3 months. And I don't blame the carnelian, but you can bet your ass it went back in my car.
Yeah. Yep.
I haven't had an accident since, but I don't think it was the rock.
Mine is about this big. It's a really big one. It's huge. Like mine's this big. It's always there. Got it on I think it was an anniversary trip with Dan, and we found a fancy crystal shop in Asheville, and because they have amazing ones, and it's like one every block almost.
God, yeah. But yeah, and then the next thing, if you're done, do you have any more questions?
Nope.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
The last thing I really wanted to move on to was sourcing. When we're talking about these crystals, something you want to be aware of is that a lot of these crystals and minerals are mined, and that's something you want to think about. I mean, yes, I know it's terrible. Mining is terrible. There is no ethical mining company. We're here in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, which have a long tradition of gold mining, and you can ask any family that those companies are corrupt as all get out, and that's normal. That's par for the course for a mining company. There is no mining company anywhere in the world that is an ethical company. They will do the worst things imaginable to get the cheapest product they can from the ground. And these are terrible companies, and people will say, oh, well, unions, the US is not that bad. It's terrible. You can ask. There's plenty of families in the Appalachian Mountains who have been coal mining for 5-6 generations, and they'll tell you they have to fight tooth and nail to be treated as human beings every quarter because the company wants to do something else that is unethical. So anytime you're dealing with any kind of substance that's mined, you're talking about something that's unethically sourced.
So, and then currently, like, I know that with we're not in the coal mining age, so there's not that much coal mining, if any, done. So when you say mining in current times, there are companies out there mining specifically for crystals. Is that what I'm hearing?
And gemstones as well. I mean, talk about
my
diamond in my engagement ring, which is beautiful, was unethically sourced. I mean, that's just how it is.
It's hard to get around.
Any kind of mineral or even precious metal. The gold in my ring was probably unethically sourced, unless it's a recycled gold.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, that's just, it's hard to get around, and it's something that you want to be considerate of when you're purchasing these rocks. Is you can ask them where they got them from, but a lot of times the seller only knows that, well, we get them from China. And a good example is rose quartz, and it's only because I just watched a documentary on this. Rose quartz comes primarily from Madagascar.
Okay.
Not, but the majority of your sellers are going to have their rose quartz sourced from China, because China buys from Madagascar in bulk, and then in the raw bulk material, and then they parse it down, they tumble it, they shape it, and they resell it back out at 1,000% markup of what they purchased it.
Right.
And when you ask them, hey, where did you get this rose quartz from? They're going to say, well, we can't say who our source is.
Sketchy.
Yeah, it's very sketchy.
And they're not wanting to tell you because then you'd know how much they marked it up. Is that their reasoning?
You know how much they marked it up. You'd know whether or not the mine was using child labor, which most of them do. That's a very common tradition for any mining company, including the ones here in the US. That was another tooth and nail thing that we had to fight for in the 30s and 40s. Some as late as the 50s were still using children in mines. It's And it's something you kind of have to swallow. That's a bitter pill. If you're one of those people that everything I own is ethically sourced, you're going to have to look at the gemstones and the crystals and the jewelry that you wear and take a moment and decide, is it worth it?
Yeah. For you, and Blake, make that decision for you. We're not saying one way or the other.
As it is with the food industry.
Yeah.
You can grow your own food. Yeah, absolutely. You can get your own chickens. You can do all of this. The mass industrial food processing industry here in the U.S. is terrible. It's terrible. It's unethical. It's poorly run. But I have to work. We work 40 hours a week. I don't have time to grow year round. I don't have time to buy a calf. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not
because it wouldn't be as simple as a calf. You would need a calf, and you would need chickens, and you would need goats, and then you would need this, and you would need that.
Yeah. And that in itself is a full-time job. I lived on a farm growing up. It's hard work. It's no vacation time. It's
every day,
if not more. Like it's every day at 4 a.m.
And it's just an unfortunate thing that has happened and most likely would have happened regardless, because there's so many people on the planet. Like, I don't know if there was a different way that it could have gone to try to keep things ethical. I feel like I might be misinterpreted, but because there's so many people, not everybody can just go into their backyard and grow everything that their family needs.
Right. Yeah. No.
So you have to have manufacturing companies. And so the goal, which should be the goal, is to have it be ethical. And I think that's probably where our generation's trying to flip it, which is great. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's all done yet.
And it doesn't mean that it's practical.
Right.
So, like if excuse me, the best way to get your jewelry and your crystals ethically sourced is to get them from estate sales. It's already been done. It's already been purchased. It's already out there. It's just like if you want ethically sourced furs, and you go to thrift stores, you go to estate sales for those.
Now, most likely they were not ethically sourced originally.
No, but
at least it's not adding to the.
It's not adding to the chain. It's not adding to the production of it, and that's what we can do. That's the measure you can take.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what you can do about that. If it truly deeply bothers you, if you pick up that piece of jade and you are really truly bothered by the fact that a child may have pulled this rock out of a quarry, which is legit. Like, that could be the energy that rock is sending you.
Yeah.
Then put it back on the shelf and go to your local, like our local jewelry store has an amazing estate shelf. It's beautiful. Go find it there.
Yeah. If that's something that's resonating with you. And again, we're not saying everybody, you have to go make sure all of your jewelry is ethically sourced. Do what's best for you. And we're just talking information.
Yeah.
So what about lab grown?
I love lab grown crystals and gemstones, and I'm probably like out there by myself with it. Because I don't pretend any kind of scientific specialness to naturally grown crystals. Lab growns they're arranged the exact same way. All the atoms are arranged the exact same way as you would find in nature, otherwise it wouldn't be considered the same mineral. They're beautiful. They're ethically sourced most of the time. Right. They're fun. Bismuth crystal is a man-made crystal that has to be lab grown. That's the only way. And it happens to be one of my favorite. I think they're gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
I love the energy that I get off of them. And I just love to look at them. I love to hold them. I like how they make me feel. Like, and that's a lab sourced crystal. And
Yeah.
I don't think that there is much of a difference unless it is important to your spiritual tradition that it be natural.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those like, oh, lab grown means it's fake. And I want
Which
real.
is not true. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it's fake. There is lots of colored glass out there that is being sold as crystals. That is fake, and it bothers me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not that colored glass can't do what we were talking about, but that it's being sold as something it's not.
Right. It's not labeled properly because colored glass is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really is.
I used to buy the little bags of tumbled crystals from the Discovery store in the mall, you know, back in the day. Oh God.
You get the little felt bag with the drawstring and you'd fill it up. It'd be that whole stand.
50% of those stones were just colored glass.
Gotcha.
Like when you really yeah.
I would get them at the beach.
Were really gemstones and crystals, and the other half was just colored glass. They were definitely cutting it, and that's fine because you're selling it to kids, and
right.
No, the parents don't want to spend $15 on an actual bag of tumbled crystals.
Mm-hmm.
They want to spend $4.
Right. Because the child just wants pretty rocks.
Because the child just wants pretty rocks. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not.
You're not right.
Like, yes. She's so sweet.
Yeah. That's my biggest issue when it comes to the fake or the not real. It's not that it's lab grown, it's that it's not what it's being sold as.
Yeah. So to sum it all up, do your research if it matters to you.
If it matters to you.
If it matters to you, you're welcome to do your own research on top of, what we've just discussed. But it doesn't have to. There is not a right or a wrong. It's not like a medicine that a doctor prescribes where you have to take it every 24 hours and know more than, all the rules and regulations. It's not, there's not a list of what you can and can't do. Except stick it in your hoo-ha. Don't do that.
Don't put it inside your water bottle.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-mm.
Those are my two really big don'ts.
Yeah, just don't do that. Save yourself some doctor visits and not do that.
Really? Seriously. Those are going to be some really fun doctor's visits.
So,
did you get Staphylococcus there?
Well, it's not this TikTok video. I know I bash TikTok. We're on TikTok, but I still bash it. Moderation, everything in moderation. It's always going to come down. Anything in life is always going to come down to moderation and balance.
Yeah. Be aware of what you're buying and be aware of how you're using it.
Absolutely.
And what you're expecting from it. That's the real takeaway.
Yeah, I like that. Do you have anything you want to tack on to the end?
I think I'm good, unless you have any other questions.
No, I think that answered my question. I may have some later. I don't know. As I process, I may ask you some later. But so thanks everybody for joining us on our crystal talk today. I hope you learned a thing. But have fun with your pretty rocks. Show us your pretty rocks. Send us some pictures. Comment below. We would love to see yours. We will, if you send us one of yours, a picture, we will send you a picture of one of ours. How about that? Because we all love pretty rocks. But so yes, there it is. That's beautiful. Pretty rock. That is beautiful. Love it. You can find us. We are the Purring Pot. This is Stephanie, my sister-in-law Rose. I guess we could have said that at the beginning. We're still learning. We're still learning. But yeah, we are on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We may start on Apple Podcasts as well, so keep an eye out for that. As of now, we are going to be releasing episodes every other Wednesday. We will keep y'all updated if that continues or if it changes scheduling. But thanks everybody for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.
Y'all have a good one.